You're watching Access LaPorte County, Channel 97. Coming up next is the October 24th meeting of the Long Beach Public Works Committee. You can find more information for this meeting at www.accesslaportecounty.org.
Did everybody get their minutes from last month? Could I have a motion to approve it?
So moved. Ernie Summers, I'll move to approve.
Thanks, Ernie. And a second?
I'll second Bob.
Okay. Water Department, Greg Parrish. Should we turn ours off with you? Okay.
Okay, all meters were read this morning. We didn't have any issues with those. All water samples were completed, came back clean for this month. Locates are slowing down for the season, so means construction slowing down a little bit. We've been taking care of shut-offs for the season as well. All fire hydrants have been serviced and operated too. No real issues with those. All water in the parks have been shut off for the season. And that is all I have as far as my field report. Any questions?
No, thank you. Okay. And I see we have Carl Cinder on. Morning, Carl. You have to unmute yourself.
Good morning. Good to see everyone.
So we asked Carl to zoom in this morning because we want to take care of the subject that we brought up last month about vacant lots. So Carl, could you speak to that, please?
Sure. I think the Indiana statute is for water utilities is a bit different than for sewer utilities. Sewer utilities, the town, if you had a sewer utility, you could require people within 300 feet of that sewer line, the collection line, to connect. But I don't believe there is such a requirement under a water utility. So it's typically voluntary if people want to connect to a water system. So with that in mind, if people aren't required to connect, then to me, it seems like, and I think common practice in most water utilities is they do not charge a fee for water service unless they connect. And in fact, some utilities will allow like retired folks who maybe have a second home, say in Florida, out of state. If they pay to have their water shut off, then their fees are stopped. However, there's an expense incurred for folks who would have to have their water shut off, and then when they return home to turn it back on. So I think most folks, pay them whatever the minimum fee is once they're connected to the water system. So that is my thought, and I think common practice for most water utilities is you only charge people fees once they're connected.
Okay, one of the things that brought this all up, which I really appreciate the detail that Greg and Lynn have worked on, that we have 10 people and what we were looking at, and we've looked high and low for the ordinance or a resolution, that those 10 people, if they had a water tap and it was a buildable lot, those were the key items, that we charged them everything. And then it's come to our attention, we don't have anything to back that up. So that's when we reached out to you last month, and you went back because you have the historical knowledge, as does Laurel, for the SRF loan, and that wasn't included in there. So what we're looking at, we are looking at okay, we're suggesting that when buildable vacant lots are purchased, a new account will be created. Only stormwater and fire protection charges will be billed. Fire protection would be taxed. The property owner can choose to add refuse and leaf pickup charges if they want the services, but would not be required to do so. A tap fee would be charged at the point when a property owner chooses to begin water service. When water service is established, the rest of the town water charges would be added to the account. So that's what we're looking at as a committee here today to recommend to the town council. And do you have any issues with that?
No, that seems to make sense, that, charging the fire protection fee, because that is, they're part of having, their home protected with the fire. And the stormwater charge makes sense for all buildable lots, that should be included. And so those other two that you mentioned, the leaf and refuge, that would make sense to me, that if they choose to have those services, then they should be charged.
The only one that came to our mind with the group that we met with was, I think they're called Shoreland Hills. They bought a lot on Drive. It's Dock 31, and they actually used, because they knew they were paying refuse, so then their beachgoers had a garbage can to put stuff in. But I think they might opt out. We can double check on that. So with that said, we need to, and Scott, you need to be visible, because since you're Zoom, when we take a roll call, for you to be counted, you have to be visible. So can you, is it audio? Camera.
Yeah, let me see what I can do. Good morning.
Okay, thank you.
Here.
Okay, so we're looking at the proposal that I just read. Do I need to read it again? Okay, all right. So when buildable vacant lots are purchased, a new account will be created. Only stormwater and fire protection charges will be billed. Fire protection would be taxed. The property owner can choose to add refuse and leaf pickup charges if they want these services, but would not be required to do so. A tap fee would be charged at the point when a property owner chooses to begin water service. When water service is established, the rest of the town and water charges would be added to the account. So, Lynn, go ahead.
One other note would be that we would be dropping charges off the,
10 accounts.
yeah, they're
Okay.
approximately 10, a few
Okay.
less than that. Would be dropping everything except for stormwater and fire protection, and giving them the option to opt out of the leaf and garbage.
Okay, all right, so we'll add that to the proposal. So, go ahead, Lynn, or Laurel, do you have?
That's a good motion.
Okay, go ahead.
I make a motion that we approve.
I got a couple of questions before we go further.
Okay,
So these people that you're talking about, is this the primary lot that they own, or is this an adjacent lot to a property they're already paying in?
sure.
It's done, last time we had.
Last time you had a similar question. We're talking about two types of vacant lots. People who come here from Timbuktu and say, someday I want to live in Long Beach, and they buy a vacant lot. And it's a vacant lot that they can build on someday. Nothing's there. That's one version. Or it could be someone in Long Beach who decides they want to buy a vacant lot, even though they live here. It's irrelevant how they get the vacant lot, what their background is, but they just have a lot that has nothing on it, and it's buildable. And what makes it buildable or not something they would probably be checking if they didn't. I wonder why, because they can get that information from the assessor's office, I believe. The other group is that few number of people that historically we've been charging because they have a tap on their lot, that when they purchased that property, they were paying for every service in Long Beach, even though there's nothing on the property. It just has a tap. So the change that we're making is to get in sync with other communities that do not charge for anything, even if the person has a tap, until the person requests water service. So what we would be doing for all vacant lots would say you have to have stormwater and fire protection, because those are two services that all land in Long Beach needs. It has nothing to do with the structure, it has to do with the land itself. As soon as we get into services that are specific to someone living there, like making garbage, raking their leaves, using their water, that all happens later when they decide they want to start using water at their property. Greg goes out, he puts in a meter, there's a tap fee that's charged at that point, and they begin water service, whether or not there's a house built there yet. because they've asked for water. Usually that's when people are building. As soon as their structure's going up, at some point the contractor says, we need water. And that's when Greg goes out. And at that point is when everything gets charged to that vacant account, the vacant lot. But prior to that, everyone who has a buildable lot in Long Beach, we get an account open for them when they purchase that vacant lot and put stormwater and fire protection only. If someone says, hey, I'd like to have garbage service, that's good, we'll add it. If they like to have leaves, we add it. Okay, does that clarify?
So I guess I have a couple of issues. One would be, I thought we discussed this last time and came to an agreement, so I'm a little confused that we're talking about.
We didn't take a vote and we
Just
didn't.
let me finish for a second. Hold on a second.
Cross here today, that's different.
Well, but we did discuss it, and the logic we had behind holding on to the capital charges at least, or what we call the base charge, I guess, that includes the original system that was installed and the improvements, was that anybody that is a lot owner in the beach has some responsibility to pick up the cost for that infrastructure. So my understanding at our last meeting was that the cost of the infrastructure at a minimum, not any water charges per se, because nobody's using water at that point, but the cost for the infrastructure should be shared by any property owners. So in particular, you've got a person that comes in relatively new, he hasn't paid anything for the infrastructure, and now we're not even going to let them, or we're going to let them slide until they decide they want to improve the lot. So I guess I have a problem with that. I think the infrastructure charges should be continued on anybody that owns property. I think that's different than somebody not using water, not having to pay for water. I understand that entirely. So I just think it's not proper to have one lot owner not pay for infrastructure that they're going to wind up using at some point, or could potentially wind up using at some point. The other issue is, of these 10 people, sometimes I wonder if we don't sometimes wind up with solutions to problems that don't exist. So were there complaints about this, or what drove this process? And if so, how many people complained?
We've had several people that have transferred to a new owner, and they've been unhappy when they got the charges. They were unhappy to the day they left. And
So are we talking 1, 2, 3?
No, I would say,
Half of them?
yeah.
So there's 10 people.
People are saying, why do we have to pay for these things? We don't have anything there.
And these are individuals that have a lot independent of anything else. It's not an adjacent lot to a property where they already pay a tap. They just bought a lot and assumed they wanted to pay this
It
charge.
could be either.
Sorry?
It could be either. It doesn't matter whether they have a property already in Long Beach or not. We're talking about just those few properties that are vacant that have taps. Doesn't matter.
Well, I feel strongly that somebody should share the infrastructure costs. That's just my point of view.
Lynn, excuse me, this is Rick Remigis. None of the subject lots or owners have tap or have access to water at this point. Is that correct?
Are you talking about just that handful of people? Because we're talking about charging for every vacant lot, regardless of whether they have a tap, all the same. Everybody would be charged stormwater and fire protection just specific to the land. That would be a change because in the past, we haven't billed anybody with vacant lots if they don't have a tap. So we
I'm
would be
talking
adding a bunch of
about, John's talking about infrastructure, but none of them, to my knowledge, have a tap or could access the system or water at this point. And
Yes.
is
go
that
ahead.
correct?
Excuse me?
2 or 3 might have.
Some do, and some don't, Rick. She said there is a group that does have a water tap and there's a group that does not.
There's
Well,
a handful-
then I think
there's
you
a-
do have an issue of some people do have a tap and have the ability to use water on their
No,
vacant.
they don't have the ability to use until we've turned water on and they've gotten a meter. The tap is just
Ah,
the.
got it, okay.
Don't have water running. As soon as they have water running, they pay for everything. That's when they want the water running, the full account opens up. And that's consistent with other communities. We're asking to make the change that those handful of people that have been unhappy, Greg and I are the ones that talk to them the most. They don't understand why they're being charged for services on a completely vacant lot just because they have a tap that is not hooked up.
But there's a difference between charging for services and charging for infrastructure. I think when you're talking about not paying for water, I understand entirely. What do you do with somebody that shuts their water off every year for 6 or 8 months? Do we tell them they don't have to pay the infrastructure charge for 6 or 8 months?
No, because they have a home there. Yeah, we have a person down, we have a couple, right, on Oriole and on, where's the companies, on, Roslyn. But
So these vacant lots don't ever rake their leaves? Their leaves
probably
just stay
blow
there?
over our,
I mean, how are we gonna police that then? So we're saying they're not gonna have to pay for leaves, but if they rake leaves to the curb, is somebody gonna run around and make sure that they pay something? This seems like a bit of a
we did,
solution. in the
okay.
problem.
we did reach out to Trail Creek and we reached out to Michigan City. And they said, no, the lots are taxed. We did not charge any of those fees to them. So we wanted to make sure we were well within our means, so.
So do we have pictures of these vacant lots so we know whether they have landscaping such that they're not gonna use the leaves pickup? I mean, if we're gonna do this, then, we're not gonna charge for leaf, but we don't know whether they're gonna rake leaves or not, right? I guess we're giving everybody the option. I'm not quite sure why.
We could have the option of Tom, when he's out doing the streets, if he notices that people are putting huge leaf piles in front of their vacant lot, we contact the owner and say, we notice that you're using the leaf service and we're adding that charge to your account. Because it would be an optional to have garbage or leaf would be optional if we see that they're using.
So again, if you follow the logic, then does that mean somebody that chooses not to rake leaves to the curb doesn't have to pay for leaves?
No, because they have a house.
They have what?
They have a house.
They have a house and they have water.
So what if they have a vacant lot next to their house, then they only gonna pay for the one for the leaf, or how's that? Do we charge the leaf by residence or do we charge it by lot?
I think that if we notice that they're using they have leaf piles in front of their vacant lot that's across the street from their existing property, that we would contact them and say, we notice you're using your leaf pickup.
So they are gonna pay for leaf if they have a vacant lot?
They have, we
If they're
would point
using-
out to them that they're using the service and they have the option of adding refuse and leaf. And when we call them and they're reasonable human beings and we say, we notice that you're using the service, so we're adding it to your account. Versus all the people that never.
And do we have Carl's recommendation and we have a motion on the floor?
We do, thank you.
Okay, is there further discussion? I mean, I understand the point. But I don't hear any support just yet.
So do we have a second for the motion?
Yeah, second.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll have to do roll call.
Mary Lou,
Yes,
one additional comment I could add. Some communities do have what's called a system development charge. And that is basically allowing for people to pay, in addition to a connection fee, a fee. It's like a capacity charge. So, if someone waits 10 years to connect, they're paying something for the capital portion of the system. That could be a separate fee that they would pay when they connect. I don't mean to throw a monkey wrench in there, but there are communities that do that for both water and wastewater service.
Can I ask for clarification on that, Carl? So you're saying that when they contact the water department and say, we want water now, we've had this law for 10 years, we would charge them a tap fee. And the tap fee is part of this whole structure at that point. You're saying that we would have the option by Indiana code to also charge them another fee that would be like a catch up on the capital charges?
Yes, system development fee.
And can you give us an approximation about what that would be? Because like our tap fee is somewhere between 1,500 and 2,500.
Some communities have a fee that's equal to that as well. Again, it's to pay for the capital that they've incurred with the water system. And it varies from community to community. It's something that we could calculate a number based on your system.
So it's Scott Pop, sorry. So did I understand that this fee could start from the moment they purchase the lot and then 10 years down the road?
It's a one-time fee.
A one-time fee, okay.
So it's kind of, some communities may round up their tap fee, and you could do that too, just to include some of the capital charges. So it's really kind of up to you. Typically, the tap fee is just the cost of inspecting or installing the tap, not necessarily for the capacity.
Mhm.
Okay, so we do have a motion on the floor and we have a second, so we have to do a roll call. If you're in favor, if you're not, of what we read. I do respect and appreciate what you said, Carl, and I guess we could make that a separate topic. Rick, your vote?
Mute.
What, you're muted, okay.
I vote for aye.
Okay, all right, Scott?
Aye.
Okay. Laurel? Aye. John Wall?
Not in favor.
Okay. Ernie?
Aye.
And Don?
Aye.
And Mary Lou, aye. Okay, so now we will make a recommendation to the town council and go forward from there. And thank you, Carl. Is there anything else we want to hear from Carl?
Are we gonna go further with his concept regarding the capital charge when the vacant lot is developed?
I would think that we need to research that, and I'll get with Carl. Is that okay? Rick? Yeah, I'll get with Carl. Yeah.
I think it maybe answers a little bit of having nothing and
Yeah,
investing infrastructure.
right. Thank you.
Good.
And
Thank-
Carl, I'll get back with you, and I really appreciate you zooming in with us today, and we appreciate your expertise and knowledge.
Sure. All right. Have a good day, everyone.
Thanks, Carl.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, now back to the Greg Harris show.
Okay.
We gotta have a little fun here.
Lake Shore Drive, I went ahead and at the last town council meeting, I got 3 bids on materials. The lowest bid came in at $144,295.44. I went ahead and ordered those materials. I got a call last Thursday that they've already got the copper, so, but they're gonna house everything and just gonna make one delivery, so.
Oh, good.
That'd be easier for me to go through, make some inventory. So they're still saying it could be May, before we get some of these parts, so. Hopefully,
Well, the good news is at least they're on order, but I think you had a question for us, and I think it's a Laurel question.
yes, we need to either encumber this money or allocate this out of this year's budget, because we have it in this year's budget, but it's not gonna get paid until next year, so we just need to make sure that we encumber that, or how we
Yeah, we would have to put it in next year's budget. I can't say, we don't want to prepay for this just to get it in this year's budget.
Right. So, yeah, so whatever it would be to get these monies into my next year budget.
Right,
So it doesn't come out of my budget. per
Right.
se,
yeah.
So Laurel, and John, on the Budget and Finance Committee, you would bring that up and tell them, you guys would.
Oh, at the budget, yes, yes.
Looks like the screen is frozen.
Yeah, I agree, Scott. I don't hear anything either.
Me either.
Okay. We'll give him a minute and then maybe log back in.
Well, I can hear you guys. I don't know about anybody else. else, but good morning, good to see you. Even though you, hey,
Oh, hi, Bob. Or Tim?
yeah. Hi, good to see you.
Yeah.
Technology is great when it works.
I know, but when it doesn't, it's maddening.
It's frustrating, right?
Yeah. Well, maybe they just kicked us guys off.
It could be, but maybe we need to make some decisions.
You know what? We'll vote. You know what? I'm gonna leave and then try and sign back in. I'll give it a shot.
Okay, I think I'll do that too.
I'll do that too. Yep.
See you guys.
If anybody has any ideas,
What did we, how much advance notice we were going to do sewers? Do you remember?
Multiple. But we're not gonna have that. I'd say what we did last time is we had a workshop. We invited everybody that was involved, meaning everybody on Lake Shore. You've got the addresses for the people that are involved in this. I'd say we'd have a little workshop, whether we do it in person and or Zoom, only in person, but we'd invite them to something. Maybe let them Zoom in and, you know, let them know what's going on and then give a written. Last time we published a notice that gave responsibilities for the homeowners versus the project on the sewer. And I think we need to do the same thing with this. I agree with you.
what I can do is I can grab Tom one day. We can go out and go over these addresses and look at definitely homes that definitely have some issues on right away. And then those are the ones that we really need to focus on and meet with them. I'll meet with them in person. However they want to do it, we'll go over what needs to be, you know, taken out. I don't think there's a whole bunch, but there's a few that really need to be addressed. And the rest of them are just going to be the driveway cut out or something like that. Nothing real big.
We'll just have to be consistent with our message so that everybody's.
Right.
So Greg, we have those letters that have been prepared for many months because we had them ready to go when we were expecting that the project was going to take
Right.
place this year. So it's just a matter of action. You have the list. If you update the list, any changes, we're ready to roll on that.
Okay. Yeah.
We can send those letters out immediately, and if people who need to be talked to individually, we can figure that out too.
Right.
It was only, my memory is something like 30.
Yeah, there wasn't too many that were.
Yeah, that had obstructions.
Really major structures over the water service or, you know, the main or some sort like that. It wasn't that many.
And in terms of being consistent, this is an issue that's specific to the water department. It doesn't need to be consistent in any other way. We're talking right of way, utility right of way obstructions.
Right.
And we can identify who those people are, and we can say it's your responsibility to get this fixed up
Give them
by
the
the
action
time.
that they need.
And we have the letters ready to go.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, we kind of spearheading off of what the sewer project was, is give them the option to move it. If they don't move it, then it gets removed during construction and it doesn't get put back. I mean, that's still.
Right, so we just had, the message has to be consistent, it has to be pretty detailed so that they understand what their responsibilities are, which that's easy enough to do.
And those letters are written and they are consistent with what was going to happen with the sewer.
Right.
And when are they certified letters in?
We have not sent the certified letters because when we were ready to do that the last time round, we were told to wait.
Okay, but would we, because after being with you in the water department, there's an awful lot of people that say, I didn't get it. So would we
Well, the
consider
people
that?
that are going to have to remove obstructions, yes, they should
Yeah,
get
they should
certified.
get
Sure,
certified.
but we need to know that 100% they've
Okay.
communicated, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But we're gonna wait and do that when we're closer to the project, right?
Yeah, we'll wait a little bit, so we get a little more idea of what might be. Because once I get the parts in hand, then we'll go back to Haas, and then they'll just, everything should be ready on their end and put them out to bid. So, okay, thanks.
Thanks, Greg. Okay, street department, old business, Tom?
Stop 17 drainage project is still a work in progress kind of thing. Don't have no real update for that. The 2022-2023 community crossing matching grant application that we had applied for, which we were supposed to hear something in the first couple of weeks of October. We still haven't heard anything back on that yet. But we have asset management plan update, which is typically due by December 1st. So we kind of need to work with Haas and updating that asset management plan, make sure that that's submitted by December 1st. Leaf pickup is starting this October 31st, and we're going to end on December 2nd. Now, last day for folks to put out leaves would be Sunday, November 27th. So then that way they can start their final one-time pass through. There's been an increase in leaf pickup costs this year. So we're going to try and hold to everything as strictly as we can to make sure that we don't go beyond our projected cost for that.
I will bring that up in the town meeting, and maybe, oh, perfect, okay.
Yeah, and I have the proposed cost for leaf removal. I mean, once they take them all out to the shop and they pile them all up and everything, then we have to have a guy come in and haul them all the way to approved compost site.
Okay.
So I have that paperwork that I have for, and I'll give it to Martin for you.
With regard to the asset management, do you need any help from any of us?
It's usually a combination effort between me and Haas. We kind of go through all the streets, reevaluate them again, and make this asset management plan up again to submit.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Okay, Public Works old business. The town council voted at the October meeting that we would leave all board members on the Public Works Committee, and so they'll rewrite it that we can have 7. Capital Plan 2023, John?
Yeah, there really isn't too much to bring to this committee. It's more informational in nature. We're looking at a couple of things. One would be the salt storage building, which someday will be mandated by IDEM. I think Tom's in the process of doing a stormwater plan this next couple of months. And we just have to make sure we're doing the correct thing in terms of IDEM. So that's a fairly significant one that is basically a public works issue, so to speak, but it's part of the capital plan that'll be reviewed the first week in December. Same thing with that retaining wall. I don't know. That's where we're at on that. Do we get some quotes on it?
Yeah, I've got one quote from Woodbridge I mentioned it was last meeting maybe. I'm still waiting for a couple other ones. I haven't gotten the quotes back on that yet. So I thought I was going to have them for this morning's meeting, but we didn't get it to me.
Is it a fence or a retaining wall?
It would be a retaining wall.
Okay.
Because what's happening is now that we have that clearing up there, it's a road down. It's actually working this way. There's like a moving dune, you know?
Oh.
So we want to retain that back. Plus, we don't want to lose any more up there than what we've got now because of stability of the tower. Okay. So it's pretty important we get some done.
Thanks, Greg. Anything else, John?
No.
Okay. No new business for the street department. Water department, Lynn?
Okay, just the usual payment and billing adjustments for the period since our last meeting. Also want to remind everyone that I do a report that comes off of our database that lists the exact charges that have been either billing adjustments or payment adjustments, and that's public record, so it's always available for anyone to look at. I'm always removing the late charges that have been approved to be removed. Billing adjustments typically are when someone, payment adjustment would be when someone actually doesn't, their check balances or whatever. We haven't had any, but we did remove late charges from last month and current. That's all I got.
Thank you. Okay, anything from the committee? Anything from the floor? We have Safar and we've got Tim Perry out there.
Good morning. Nothing for me. Thank you very much. Nothing.
Okay,
Thanks.
thanks, Tim.
Yeah, I have one question. I think we have,
So far, I thought maybe you were sleeping if you didn't have a question.
I'm sorry. I was just trying to turn mute from the unmute. My simple question we have is, I think we continue to have these charges adding in water bill. I mean, now we are just talking about the leaf. I mean, we have leaf in a pickup, the waste management pick up the leaf. Whenever couple of months that happen, we pack it up put it in the bags and put it on the road, and waste management takes out. Why can't we do the same thing for the waste management during the month of October and November? They can pick it up and waste management pick up instead of charging extra to the citizen.
My understanding is Waste Management doesn't want to take leave.
But I think that, John, if the same company is taking here in Dayton, Ohio, or actually I live in a Butler Township, every year without any objection, then why it will be a difference that waste management will not take? They can take it in Dayton, Ohio, or Butler Township, but they will not take it in Long Beach. It makes no sense to me.
So far, I have a question for you. Do you rake your own leaves?
No, actually, I have a 7-man. So
Well, as an older person on this committee, we still rake. And do you know how much more time it takes to put it in a bag?
I can assure you that by the time you rake it and put it in a bag, it doesn't take that long to do that. But you're charging $16, $17 a month for these people to provide service only a couple of months, a couple of weeks.
Well, one of the issues would be where I live, we don't pay for garbage. That's in our taxes from our sewer. So they pick up our garbage on Wednesdays. I think they do leaf pickup, but we pay Long Beach because they're dependable. Not that the others aren't, but they're not as prompt.
I think while we are negotiating with these waste management fees and other things now, which previously I was under the impression we were discussing, then why don't we talk to them also to pick up the leaf? You have capital investment on your trucks and other things which you continue to spend money, then you continue to charge the citizen when that responsibility can be shifted to the waste management.
You know what? I will defer that to the chief. He does work with them, and we can certainly ask them. Would that be okay?
Yeah, I think my purpose of this conversation is, I mean, like a stormwater that was added for 6 months. Now we have become the stormwater permanently. I'm not against it, but I think we tell the citizen that it's maybe going to be 6 months or maybe 8 months. And then typically the same thing, the government puts some kind of levy for a certain period, and then they continue to extend and extend and extend, and it never goes away. But these kind of things should not be happening in a small town in Long Beach where 1,100 people lives, and we continue to add burden on the citizen. Not everybody can afford it.
Well, the only time we had anything as far as if we feel like we have a need, for instance, on the stormwater, that fee is going to continue as long as we have a need. We always said that we would reduce it if the need was such that we didn't need it anymore. And right now we have so many projects out ahead of us that need to be done that we're not even close to having enough funds in there or enough money in that fund to take care of all the needs, to say nothing of things like the salt storage building and some of the other somewhat storm-related issues. So, you know, in terms of the garbage, I think we could certainly revisit the way we do it, but it was, you know, the evolution of that charge was that to get the leaves picked up, we used to do it with our own staff, and then they were so busy doing that that they couldn't do anything else, so all the other services fell down. So I think that was the motivation. I wasn't around, but I think that was the motivation for going with an outside contractor. We can certainly look at whether or not there's another better way to do it. But with the nature of our community, an awful lot of people, as Mary Lou said, an awful lot of people either don't rake or they have a contractor service we have to be a little bit careful about what we allow everybody to do. If some are bagging and some aren't, number one, the refuse companies won't take it as part of the regular routes. They don't want it in the landfills. So, that limits us a little bit. But, we could look at a better way of doing it. But that's
So then, one of my questions is, how do we determine if we allow people to bag? How do we determine which homes get skipped for the vacuum? I mean,
yeah, right now we don't allow them to bag. We don't want to do
right,
that.
right. But I'm saying if we do, then are we going to have markers that you put out front that say, "Oh, this house bags, so no vacuuming," or?
No, there's not going to be any vacuuming. Then there's going to be waste management should be pick up all the leaves. Month of October and November, they put it outside in the bag, and then they just take away. There is no reason to have capital expenses for the rack, and there's no capital expenses required, maintenance expenses required, and then $16 a charge to the citizens.
So it sounds like they are going to be allowed to bag if things changed.
Correct. Yes, that's what I'm suggesting. They should be
Okay.
allowed to bag, and then waste management picks up exactly the like here. I don't put those racks out because I have a 7-acre land, but I see all the citizens, they put their outside and the waste management take it and never even ask a single question.
So
We'll look into it when we're doing with
Yeah.
Women's Republic.
My point is I think we should be looking at the ways to reduce the expenses, not add the expenses every time. We have $30 for base charges for water, and on top of that, we have finance charges. So I don't really know what is the difference between base charges and finance charges and then water charges. It's amazing that how we add those expenses because all of you can afford it. You may not pay, and some of them people do feel the pain.
Well, actually, so far, the stormwater, I believe, Tom, didn't we buy a piece of equipment so that we no longer have to have, didn't we rent it from Woodruff?
No, well, we used to contract out for some of the larger drainage systems in the ground. We would have to call like D&M, Delta 3.
Right. So now that's one of the things that we first purchased with our stormwater fee so that we could do it ourselves. So we are, in the long run so far, we are trying to reduce the cost, and we appreciate your input. So it's not just sitting there. There's other, as John said, there's a lot more needs that we have.
I agreed. I think I agreed. I'm not against that, but I'm just trying to have is we need to find a way, just like a business. John is a businessman, and you can ask him in his business, he finds a way to cut down expenses, whatever it takes to make sure the business is profitable. That's what philosophy I'm trying to use. There is limits, you cannot do it, but I think those expenses is easy to add, but then it's difficult to subtract them back. So that's what your committee is. The government should be doing it to make sure that they don't spend the taxpayers' money unnecessarily.
Thank you, Sapar.
Thank you.
If I may, this is Laurel, if I may add, I would think if we contracted with Waste Management or Republic or whoever's doing it, because that would increase. So then when you have to increase the garbage cost, I mean, they're just not gonna just take over that whole project, which is really a big project, without charging extra money for it. So, I mean, we could take a look at getting that costed and see what the difference is.
This kind of came up a few years ago, maybe 5-6 years ago, and at that time it wasn't even offered. It wasn't even an option to have Waste Management pick up leaves like that. And then we don't allow bagging of any kind, and the reason for that is because what we had when folks were bagging at the very beginning of all this, we had leaves and then garbage mixed into it, and then there's and what happened was on Lakeshore Drive, what appeared to be leaves in the top of the garbage bag. You can pour them all open and dump them out, and there was a hypodermic needle in there. So if somebody was to, we can't take plastic bags or anything like that full of leaves, is because, for one, they don't decompose. And that's the whole deal with this, having our leaves go to EPA, IDEM approved site, composting site. So in that way, we try to keep as much garbage out of it as possible. And the guy that is taking these leaves, he actually goes out there and he sees any paper or anything in there, plastic bottles, he pulls it out. You're not going to get it all, but that's one of the reasons we do not allow any leaves in bags at all. We had the same issues with even the big paper bags. They would put garbage inside there, and then they would put leaves on top, and then some more garbage. It's just kind of, so if we didn't allow any of it at all, we're not taking the risk of anybody getting poked by a needle. We don't know what kind of medication or anything that anybody is on, so that was a big safety thing to keep everybody safe.
And we're trying to educate people not to put any sticks, try to take those out because it is the town's equipment.
Right.
And then we have to pay to have that fixed, so. Okay, so the next meeting is November 28th. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Laurel, make the motion.
Richard Remages.
Thanks, Rick. Okay, see you guys next month. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Thank you. Likewise.